It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome, welcome. It is Memorial Day weekend, and I know this is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life, and we are delighted that you are joining us. However, this is an important day because, or the weekend, Memorial Day itself, Monday. Obviously, the markets are all closed, and let's just take a moment here to remember why you get Monday off. You don't get Monday off just to have barbecues or the unofficial start to summer, even though always in the Northeast it's cold. Memorial Day honors men and women who died while serving in the U.S. military. It originated after the Civil War. It did not become an official federal holiday until 1971. All right, so what can you do for Memorial Day? Maybe you will go to a parade. Maybe you'll have a memorial service for somebody. Maybe you'll visit a cemetery. But as somebody who is the member of a military family who lost somebody, I think that it's really important that families feel like even those who didn't lose a family member or a friend or know anybody, that even those who are completely on the surface unaffected by some of these terrible, terrible losses, that you remember. And you don't have to go to a parade. You don't have to do anything. But I do think it's a nice idea for at some point to take a moment on Monday or even during this weekend to just think about all of those military personnel who died in any war. So I think that it's I know, it sort of seems like a bummer, right? Like, oh, why are you talking, bringing me down? It's just because it's so important, okay? So Memorial Day, yes, unofficial start to summer. I'm happy that it is getting to be that time also. But just let's remember why we are celebrating or taking that day off. Just think about it, okay? Sounds good. Okay, now on to the program. This is Jill on Money, and we are broadcasting live from the Capital One Bank studios in New York. And what we'd love to do is to hear from you, because that is kind of the lifeblood of the program. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. That's askjill@jillonmoney.com. Alternatively, if you're poking around the website, and by the way, which you should do that, lots of great information, resources, and all that fun stuff. Once you're on that website, if you're just looking something up or you're watching a television appearance or reading one of my columns, don't forget, you can always hit the Contact Us button from right there on the website. So let us now start to turn back to you and take some calls. We're starting with Ronnie from Connecticut. Hi, Ronnie.
Hi, thanks. So I'm a recent grad, and I'm hoping to one day semi-retire early. I'd like to have enough money, saved up to really cover most of the bills and just work part-time doing things that I like.
Mm-hmm. Well, wait a minute. You just started working, and now you want to retire? How old are you?
Well, have to plan ahead, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm encouraged by that, but how old are you?
24. Just turned 24.
Okay. And what do you do for a living?
So I'm a budget analyst right now.
Okay. Are you using your retirement account offered through your employer?
Yep. And I also have a IRA.
Okay. So how much do you earn?
About $58 a year.
And how much are you putting away into that 401k, and how much are you putting away into the IRA?
So for the 401k, it's about 10%,
mm-hmm.
and then for the IRA, I max it out.
Oh, great. And it's a Roth IRA?
Yep, both 401k and
Both are
IRA or
Roth. Great. Fantastic. So you're putting away some good cash. Are you living at home? Are you living in a cheap rental? How are you saving all this money?
Yep, for now, living at home while I save up to get my own place. But in the meantime, trying to take advantage of it as much as I can.
Okay. Yeah, no kidding, right? Thank you. So, look, it's hard to know really what your expenses are at this point, right? Because you're saving a ton of money, which is great, and I encourage you to do that. However, when you have to go out and pay for your own rent, how much do you think that's going to be?
So rent around here is probably around 1,400.
Okay, so that's not too bad on your income. Have you looked at your expenses and said to yourself, okay, once I have that $1,400 a month, do you think you can still sock away as much money into your retirement accounts?
Yeah, I think I would because I don't have any student loans and my car is all paid off.
Okay.
So I really don't have much expenses once I move out besides, actual living expenses.
Sure.
And, obviously like food and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think I would be able to maintain it.
Okay, that's great. So, all right, here's what I'm going to suggest to you. We don't have enough information at this point, but you're on a great path. One thing you can do is you can play with some different retirement calculators to give you, might give you a better sense of kind of how you would do going forward. There's tons of free calculators. They ask you a bunch of questions, and you can kind of go from that point. And you can check back in with this every year or so. There's also a calculator you can pay for. It's called ES Planner. ESPlanner.com is a very good piece of software, and it's not that expensive, but it's very, it's a little bit more detailed.
Okay.
I think that beyond that, at this point, you're doing what you should be doing. I think that once you move out of your parents' house, what you should do is see how you absorb the rent. If things are going fine with the rent, and presuming that, again, you have no debt and you have 6 to 12 months of your expenses that's in the bank, a nice emergency reserve fund, you can actually increase your Roth 401k to put a little bit more away. And if you can do that, then you're going to accelerate your retirement path. All that being said, Ronnie, my man, it's a long way between here and there. Let's see what happens, And so I love that you are really psyched about this. I do want to, of course, caution you that so many things in life are variable. I think it's great to be able to plan now and work really hard and keep pushing that money aside. But, if in 10 years you called me up and said, hey, I'm married, I have 3 kids, and there's no way I'm retiring when I'm 45 to 50, I also will going to give you a free pass on that. Okay, we are going to take a quick little break. Now, what you can do is while we're doing this break and paying some bills, you can go to the website. Go to JillOnMoney.com. That's it. Very easy. And go check out our updated resource center, because I used to have the 10 questions to ask a financial advisor. Now I have 13 questions, and some of those questions you've got to ask yourselves. So go to JillOnMoney.com, click on the resource button, and you can find out all about what you should be questioning around financial advice. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. We are here to take the mystery out of your financial life, even on Memorial Day weekend. We can only do that if we hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com, or you can click on the Contact Us button on our website, jillonmoney.com. So just go ahead and do that, will you? We are going to start this segment out with a call from Phil from Tennessee. Hi, Phil.
Well, thank you. So, I don't know, 15 years or so ago, my employer, like a lot of other employers, decided to get rid of the traditional defined benefit pension and, move everybody to a 401k. And they upped their matching and all, which was nice. They didn't have to do that, I guess. But one thing they did do was they created this thing they called a personal pension account, and it seems to act or has acted like a savings account and grown very slowly, but it never went down. Like even during the financial crisis, it just kind of grew at a very small per interest rate. But anyway, I'm 58 and I'm looking to retire and start a new career. And I've got this choice to make of what to do with this account. They're basically saying I can take a lump sum. They will purchase an annuity for me. And, there's like 100 different flavors of the annuity between me and my wife. And, does it disappear when I die? Does it disappear when she dies? Does it stay level until the last one dies? All that kind of thing. But in the fine print, it does talk about that it's subsidized for people that are retiring early, and implies that the subsidy gets smaller and smaller the closer you get to 65. I found a calculator on the internet somewhere where I could compare a lump sum with an annuity and put the interest rate to kind of see, what might be the best choice. And for somebody 58 like myself, if I was to live 30 years, I just took one example. If I just did it for myself until I die, say I live 30 years, it would pay $1,152 a month, and according to the calculator, it said that's about 7.75% interest rate.
Whoa, that's awesome.
And I was kind of like, "Oh, that's pretty good."
Yeah, that's not that pretty good. That's awesome, because remember, one thing about that is it's a guarantee. So it's one thing to say, 7.75% in, last year. You might say to yourself, oh, but the stock market did so much better. But this is a 7.75% guarantee for 30 years. That's a huge number.
So, yeah, and, if there was a bunch of different options, and I don't remember all the numbers, but, obviously it went down if I did to cover my wife's life. There's all kinds of options, like you could do 75% after I die for my wife, or 50% after I die for my wife, or, all that kind of stuff.
So let me ask you a question. When you ran all those different scenarios, was it basically like somewhere between 5, 6, 7% based on whatever scenario you chose?
So I didn't run all the scenarios in the calculator, and so I don't have that number for you. I guess my initial reaction, I've been hearing for 20 years from the trade press and people like you, and all annuities are a bad idea. Don't go buy one. Well, this is a case where I didn't go buy it. Somebody picked it for me.
Right. No. I don't think annuities are all bad. I think guarantees are great. Let's talk more about what's going on in your financial life. So you're 58. You're going to retire. You're 59, and you have a wife also. And how old is she?
She's 4.5 years younger.
Okay. And does she work?
She works part-time.
Okay.
Makes about $12,000 a year.
All right. And how much do you earn right now, Phil?
$184.
Say that again, $184?
Yes.
How much do you guys need to live on?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, we almost got the house paid off. We only owe like $26,000 on the house, I think. I do have one more still in college. So for the next year or so, I need to make money. And like I said, I'm going to take another job, and I'm going to make almost as much in my new job. It's just that I'm technically retiring from my current job.
Okay, so that's good to know. All right.
I intend to work till I can qualify for Medicare at least.
All right, so you're good till 65. The personal pension savings account, how much money's in there right now?
$172,000.
All right, and tell me about the rest of your retirement savings. What else do you have?
I have about $750,000 in a 401k. I've got about $20,000 in an IRA. My wife's got $115,000 in an IRA. We've got not as much taxable, outside of retirement savings I'd like. We did put girls through private schools and college and everything, but we got about $26,000 in savings. I've got about $7,000 in cash in my brokerage account. We've got $94,000 in stock in my current employer.
Do you have to exercise that when you leave, when you retire?
No, I can basically do nothing and have it, I'll just sit there and wait until I decide what to do later.
I got you. But you're thinking that I might as well start the clock because it seems that subsidized part of the pension, of the personal pension, is reduced as you get older. So are you saying to me that you think what you're contemplating is sort of work for another year, let this thing go for another year, and then at the moment you do retire, that you will annuitize this potentially, or should you roll it into just a general IRA rollover, which you may do with your current 401k? Is that about the right question?
Well, maybe a little different. I guess I was thinking if it's only earning 2%, if it wasn't for this subsidy, I would probably just roll it into my 401k and invest it a little more aggressively.
Sure.
But since there's this subsidy, I'm wondering, well, gosh, when I turn 59 and a half in like 9 months, do I just go ahead and take the annuity to have to get as much of the subsidy as I can?
Right.
Go ahead and even start taking it, even though I'm still going to work another 7 years.
Right. Even though you don't need the money. I get you. When you were telling me about the annuity that you feel pretty confident about. I mean, it's your straight life, and I probably wouldn't have you do straight life, but let's make up some numbers. Let's pretend that you just do sort of a joint and 50% for your wife would get 50% of it because it's nice to have a little income maybe. If it were like a guarantee of say 5 or 6% for 30 years, that's a pretty nice guarantee to have. I know it's not a huge dollar amount relative to your overall net worth, but if we presume when you are 65 that you will need, you sound like you're good savers. So I'm trying to go backwards and say that, if you make $200,000, how much are you really spending? You spending $10,000 a month? Is that possible? Like after college and after the house is paid off, or does that seem high?
It seems high after the college is paid off.
So maybe $8,000 a month? Does that seem reasonable?
Maybe.
You think that's even high, don't you?
Depends on how much traveling we do.
Let's say that you travel a lot. Why shouldn't you travel? You worked hard. You need $96,000 a year. You need $100,000 a year, right? How much will you get in Social Security for both of you?
I'll probably get like the maximum benefit because I've been paid enough for the last several years. I've made more than the maximum, that they withhold on.
And then she'll get half of yours, presumably.
I guess I haven't really looked into that.
Yeah.
But, okay.
So we need to get you somewhere around $5,000 a month from your portfolio. So here's the benefit of like taking this money as an annuity. Okay, number one, it's a guarantee. And, I'm going to make you go do a little homework and follow up with me just in terms of letting me know what the interest rate is if you did it like with a joint and survivor benefit. Because if you think about this, if you needed $8,000 a month and with Social Security as well as this annuity, you could get half of that guaranteed with no risk, then the only thing you need to worry about is pulling money out of your portfolio, which is, basically is like $1 million to give you the extra money. Then you can do that very easily. And I think it's nice to have the income that's like half of your needs are covered just by Social Security and this pension income. Okay, when we return, we are going to get more in depth on your financial life. Don't forget, you can always reach us. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. It is college graduation time. And you know what that means. We're going to be talking about those jobs that are good jobs, bad jobs. I have a funny Wallet Hub study, best and worst entry-level jobs. I know this is shocking, but the top 5 best entry-level jobs, according to this Wallet Hub survey, are some form of engineers. Electrical engineer, number 1. Systems engineer, number 2. Plain old engineer, number 3. Environmental health and safety engineer, number 4. Number 5, hardware engineer. Mark, that baby is going to be an engineer. There's a web app developer, number 6, electrical engineer, electronics engineer, number 7, industrial engineer, number 8, architect, number 9. That's interesting. And operations research analyst, number 10. By the way, highest average starting salary, tax attorney. But you have to go to both. You have to go to law school, and then you also have to be studying tax, which sounds like you're putting needles in my eyes if I had to do that. Tax attorney starting salary, $97,559. All right. Worst entry-level jobs are the ones that are tough ones. Machinist, sheet metal mechanic, building inspector, carpenter, aircraft painter, tool and die maker, automotive mechanic, floor assembler, boiler maker, and welder. I don't know. I think that tells you everything you need to know about the job market in total. Okay. Now let's talk about one of these new folks. Here's Mackenzie, who is about to wrap up schooling, and I'm looking at different places to work. My question: one of my potential employers offers a dollar-for-dollar matching program up to 4%. I already have a Roth IRA that I contribute to, and I don't know if I should just say no to the free money. Answer: say yes to the free money. Mackenzie: yes. Okay. I don't care. She says I might move around from different employers to make sure I find a good fit. I don't feel like it's a good idea to have the 401k because I may leave a company a year later, and then the money would just have to be converted to my Roth or just sit by itself. But what is that? So who cares? You got 4% of free money. When do you walk down the street and like stomp on $800 and say, I don't need it. It's too much trouble. So if you left, big deal. You could roll it into another retirement account. You could roll it into another employer's account. You can put it in an IRA rollover. Who cares? Take the money. Take the money. All right? Oh, brother. Okay. Here is a question from Carol. My husband retired in 2018 after 45 years of service as a software engineer. He's got a consulting contract with a company for future work. So last year he received a W-2 for income while he was an employee, and then a 1099 MISC, miscellaneous, for the consulting work done after he retired. So my tax program wants to give him the deduction for his consulting income. I'm not sure that he's eligible. Do you know whether he is entitled to this deduction? QBI deduction. I know. I'm just trying to think. Qualified business. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you look. This was asked before tax season, so I'm late to the party. We didn't get this in time, Mark. So I don't know. I would think that on that income you might be able to get it, but I would double check. And if you had any question and you maybe went on extension or you find a different answer, then you can always recharacterize and file another return. But now that tax season's over, maybe you should talk to a tax preparer or a CPA who can help you navigate that particular transition. Okay? Luke was recently speaking with he puts in quotation marks, financial advisor about next steps now that he's fully funded his emergency fund and maxes out his 401k and an IRA. Luke says, I have no dependents. I may someday, but not in a plan at this point. So when the advisor suggested whole life insurance, I was surprised. Seems like an incredibly long payback period to access the cash value where I'm locked into a firm monthly payment. It's what I'm trying to avoid. Is there ever a time when whole life insurance can be a good investment vehicle? When someone else is paying the premium, not you. This is not a financial advisor. This is a salesperson. Skip it. And by the way, why invest in an insurance product when you don't have any insurance need? You don't mention your tax bracket, Luke, but my guess is pay the tax because you say you're putting money into a Roth IRA. So you make under a certain amount of money. Pay the tax, Use a plain old investment platform like Vanguard, Charles Schwab, T. Rowe Price. Maybe use Betterment, anything that will help you with the investment side, or do it yourself. And do not buy a life insurance product when there is absolutely no insurance need. Okay. Here's a note from Fern. My two sons are construction workers. One is a journeyman electrician, the other a heavy equipment operator. Most of the jobs are away from home, long drives away. They have motel and meal expenses and mileage expenses. These deductions have stopped, right? Because they have no deductions because they're probably wage earners. They're probably W-2 employees. They still have the expenses. It takes a big chunk out of their wages. It is not hardly worth working. Really? I think that's probably a little bit of an overstatement. Is there a solution? Yeah, you can do two things. One is you can, bite the bullet and pay and realize that I bet their tax bracket went down. Or two, you can say, I don't want to be a full-time employee. I will be self-employed. Then I have to pay both sides of Social Security, the employer and the employee. Oh, and then I also have to pay my own taxes. I have to have my own health insurance. And I have to create my own retirement plan. Those are your two choices. I don't like questions like this. Life's not that unfair. Calm down, everybody. Okay? The email, I sound a little angry in that moment. I'm not really angry. It's just that, come on, guys. It's taxes. Relax. Not tons of options here. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Maybe I was too mean. You guys can tell me. And let us know if you have questions, concerns, issues. Hop onto the website, jillonmoney.com. You can sign up for our free weekly newsletter right there. We'll be right back.
If you've missed any part of the show or want to check out a past show, go to jillonmoney.com for more great personal finance content.
You're back with Jill on Money. Happy almost graduation if you are almost graduated from high school or college. I love this email, cracked me up, from Lori, who wants to brag about her son, Nathan. He graduated from Michigan State University in 2015. He had $65,000 in debt. And as of yesterday, he's paid off more than $40,000 of that debt, all while making about $60,000 a year. I think he's fantastic. He was actually physically ill when he found out that the loans accrued interest while he was still in school. Hey, gang, there's a difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Mark, when I was on CTM and I was talking about the loan issue, I got so many people who came up to me after and said they had no idea that an unsubsidized loan, the interest rate clock starts while the kid's in school. I know that for the judgmental people out there, calm down. I know that you think everyone should know this, but it's not readily available and there are no explanations of what these terms mean sometimes. So Nathan says, Nathan's mother said that that was a big surprise to him. Okay, and she also says parent loans are killers. His dad has said he would help him, but never could financially. Now the only loans that Nathan has left are the ones that are in his name. And he's only got about $25,000 to go. And by the way, these loans don't get paid off if you make the minimum payment, right? You've got to actually pay more than what your minimum payment is, right? All right, Sandra writes, she and her husband have been married before. They've got children from prior marriages, and they don't have children together. They live in Pennsylvania. They own their home and a rental home, and they have joint they must be joint tenants, or maybe they have community property. I'm not sure, but they're both listed on the deeds of both houses. In our wills, we each have left our half of the houses to our children in the event we die before our spouse. Question, does the will override the deed? If we had just the deed, the surviving spouse would be the sole heir. I just want to be sure what the surviving spouse would be legally required to do. I so enjoy your segments on CBS, and I so enjoy that you enjoy them. All right, Mark, let's think about this for a second. I believe that the contract, meaning the deed or A contract would be a 401k beneficiary designation or a life insurance designation. I believe that that's what rules. And I think what would happen is that if you died before your husband and you own the property jointly, the property would go to him directly. But if you were tenants in common versus so if we're joint tenants, your share goes to him automatically. But if you're tenants in common, it means your share can go to whomever you want. So I have to go back to the house deed, and we have to understand how the house is owned, right? Joint tenancy with rights of survivorship or entirety would mean that spouse one dies, spouse two gets the share of the house. Tenants in common would mean that the asset is split in half, and your half could go to your kids. Now, the other thing you should probably do is if you're asking me this question, I'm wondering whether you want to go back and talk to your attorney as well, just to double check. Okay? That would make me feel a little bit better because I don't want you to have any worries about this. All right, here's another trust and estate question from Sharon. Her husband's 77 and she's 55, and he's retired and she just retired. He has adult children from a previous marriage. He set up a trust for me last year after we were married. Wonder if she gets along with the kids. His former wife and he have a marital settlement agreement, which transfers through the divorce. In it, his kids receive 25% of his assets upon death. Any advice you can provide to avoid potential pitfalls or solutions to this future situation? Trust is valued at $3 million. Our marital residence is with rights of survivorship and worth about $600,000. You know what, Sharon? Here's my advice. This sounds like a cluster you-know-what, and I am not clear that your estate documents are harmonized with his divorce decree. So I think you need to go back to the attorney and make sure that all of this works together. Because if it's not managed correctly, it will turn into a pain in the neck. Okay? So let's be clear about what you have, how it works with the divorce decree, and then go from there. Okay. How much time? What do we got? A minute and a half. I can't do this in a minute and a half. Well, let me just do it quickly. Jill has an inherited IRA. Her mother passed away last year. She didn't but her IRA didn't get put in my name until early 2019. Generally, you must be, she says, I know I have to begin taking RMDs. According to that, I have to take the RMD this year, but since it wasn't established in my name till this year, does that mean I don't have to take the RMD till 2020? Thanks in advance. All right, let me do this quickly. Go back to the place where the IRA is held and talk to them. Because now what we need to know also is, was she taking distributions herself? Because that too would actually guide you as to whether or not you need to take your required minimum distribution. Go back to the place where the IRA was held. If they establish the new account for you, the answer will be easy because they'll have all the information you need. Okay, you are listening to Jill on Money. If you've got financial questions, give us a holler. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to our podcast. You can get it on Apple, Stitcher, Radio.com, Google Play, anywhere else you get your favorite podcasts. It's called Jill on Money. It's a little different than the radio show, so check it out. All right, we will be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. And before we close out the hour, want to get to an email question. Remember, you can send us an email. It's askjill@jillonmoney.com. You can also go to our website, jillonmoney.com, and there's a little bright button. Mark has it put in a little sort of oblong, circle-ish shape, contact. But while you're there, you can watch some old segments. You can read stuff that I'm writing, listen to old shows. You can buy the book. And there's a great resource tab. So check it out. Okay. So this is a question about somebody who wants to transition into financial planning. And the question is, what route do you go? And the choices are go to St. John's University for an MBA in finance, another $45,000, or go to Hofstra, which is a local school on Long Island, for executive certificate in financial planning, $4,500. Okay, if you're going to be in the financial planning business, I think what you ought to do is you probably want to go to the financial planning route. But the question is, the financial planning certificate, it doesn't really mean anything unless they're getting you prepped to pass the Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards exam. So what I would do is I would go to the CFP website, which is cfp.net, for people who are thinking about the Certified Financial Planner profession. And then what you need to do is to figure out whether this is one of those programs that the CFP board not sanctions, but sort of says, hey, this is part of the family. And so I think the answer is not that if you're going to become a financial planner, I wouldn't say getting an MBA in finance is going to actually serve you very well. On the other hand, I really want you to check in with the CFP board to see, you're obviously in New York or Queens or Long Island, then find out what the best program, best, cheapest program for you to take that would prepare you to actually sit for that CFP exam. And you can also try to get an internship to get those hours of experience, all that fun stuff. Okay, now, you have been listening to the first hour of the Jill on Money program. We are broadcasting live from the Capital One Bank studios in New York. If you've got a financial question, let us know. It's Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
You are back. It's hour number 2 of Jill on Money. We have been getting some questions here and there and about this thing called the FIRE movement. No, not those 2 documentaries, which are totally different. We're talking about FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early. And so we wanted to get one of the people who is really part of that movement. His name is Grant Sabatier, and his book is called Financial Freedom, A Proven Path to All the Money You Will Ever Need. And his website's called millennialmoney.com. I brought Grant on because I wanted people to hear what his story was like. Now, it's not necessarily going to sync up exactly with your story or your kid's story, but it's interesting nonetheless. We are broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios, so stay tuned. Here is our interview with Grant Sabatier.
My parents, let me start there really quickly, they grew up in rural Indiana, like one stoplight town, had nothing growing up, were very poor, like one pair of pants per year type poor. And then they ended up having me after not thinking they could have kids. They got pregnant in their late 20s and decided that they wanted to give me a different opportunity. And so they moved from rural Indiana, left all of their families, the only people who've ever done this, and they moved to the suburbs of Washington, D.C. And my mom was a secretary for a number of years, and my dad actually cleaned office buildings. And so they really kind of started from the bottom, and I was always, in my class, the kid with the least amount of money. I never felt deprived. I always felt like I had opportunities. I knew my parents were making a lot of sacrifices for me, but I could tell that being outside the DC suburbs, there's quite a bit of money that I, always had the least amount on my soccer team. Money was something that stressed my parents out. They talked about it, it was something that was always very present. And my father used to tell me 2 things when I was a kid. These are some of my earliest memories. Life is a beach and money is freedom. And I didn't know as like a 5-year-old kid what either of those meant. And I actually had the opportunity last year when I launched my Financial Freedom podcast to bring my dad on as the first guest. And I asked him, I said, what did you mean by money is freedom? And so he got to unpack, how he always viewed money and was diligent about saving even though he didn't make a lot. And so it's not lost on me or anyone that I, had such a kind of intimate relationship with money from a young age, and it's always something that I've been fascinated by. And now I feel grateful that I, am able to do this.
Did you feel stress when you were young about money?
I didn't feel stress, but I felt my parents' stress. Certainly. I was an only child. We were kind of the three of us. We were a unit. And so I knew it was something that stressed them out. Everything from, I remember one year they had a hard time making the payment for my soccer team. I remember that very vividly. And so it was always something. But on the flip side, I knew that they were giving me opportunities. So that was always kind of embedded in me. And then when you fast forward and I had to move back home at 24, I felt quite a bit of shame around they'd given me so much opportunity and made so many sacrifices for me. And my parents are in their mid-60s now, and they're still both working. They didn't start saving for retirement until they were in their 50s. And they've done incredibly well with what they had, and I'm extremely proud of them. But certainly money was something that was very stressful in our house.
So you grew up outside of D.C. in the suburbs, and then you went to college.
Yep.
And where did that take you?
Yeah, so I was kind of the kid who did everything he was supposed to do. Worked hard, curious, graduated number 2 in my class. I ended up going to the University of Chicago. The one thing about me is I'm really, really intense. Like, a lot of people ask me, like, how did you become financially independent and a millionaire in 5 years from nothing? And you have to realize that that's like all I did. I really wanted to get a job by the time I graduated college, and I got one at a company 2 hours outside of Chicago in one of the northern suburbs that, when you call into airlines or any company and it's like, this call may be monitored for quality assurance. I worked for the company that listened to those calls.
Oh, boy.
And so that's what I did. Like, it's sort of like some dystopian situation where I was commuting, waking up at 4 every day. So it was the job that I got. I was excited. I was making $42,000, but I ended up bouncing around 4 different jobs over about a 3-year period because I never quite found the right fit. I mean, that commute really killed me. I ended up getting laid off 7 months later because I wasn't going through enough calls, and so thus I wasn't making the company enough money. And then I went to another somewhat related company, and I couldn't kind of find my fit. I really wanted to be a writer. That's what I really wanted to do. So I was writing fiction. I was, trying to do that on the side, but the work ended up being so sort of soul crushing that I didn't have enough space to do that.
How many years did you bounce around like that?
It's like 2.5, almost 3 years.
At that point, did you say, I got to move? Like, I got to move home, or because financial reality, or because you just wanted? I mean, sometimes you just want to nest. You want to I want to regroup, and there's nothing wrong with that. So what was the motivation for you to go back home?
I just completely ran out of money. I got down
That's a good motivation.
Yeah, to $400, and I wasn't going to be able to pay my rent. And my girlfriend, who's now my wife, she was had roommates, and so I couldn't really crash there. And, it became a situation where she was a little like, what are you doing with your life? She was in graduate school at the time. And so I moved back to my parents, had a reset. They said that I could stay there for 3 months.
Which I think is amazing. In the book,
Yeah.
I read that, and I was like, I thought that was an interesting thing, that they're like, okay, the clock is ticking. Here we go. And you're going to contribute also to this household, right?
Yeah. And my father actually said it was one of the toughest things that he had to do as a parent, being like, we're not going to give you any money, put this constriction. I probably would have blasted out of there, anyway, as quickly as I could, because I just had so much emotion around it, and I didn't want to be 24 living back with my parents. But, they made sure, obviously, putting that bookend that, hey, you got to take this seriously, you got to get out. And they didn't really ask me much how things were going during the period.
So they didn't nag you?
No, they didn't nag me, but we'd come down, I felt like a child, sitting down at dinner, we'd sit around and we'd be talking about something else, but you could tell, when you're talking to someone and then look in their face, they're thinking about 4 other things.
Yeah, well, here's your mother's like, I want to ask him how many job interviews he talked about, right? But
totally.
I don't want to say that because that's going to make him go off, right?
And just worry, just general worry in their eyes, just kind of concern of is he okay? What's he going to do? So I felt all of that. And also I knew how much my parents had sacrificed for me. And so I had that kind of double whammy where it's okay, always kind of doing well by them was important to me.
It's like you're the good boy, and you've got that great guilt that's firing you up.
Totally.
And also, as you said, you're hyper focused on projects.
And so I just was doing a simple Google search on my phone, and I saw a Google mobile ad, and they were pretty new at the time. This is 2010, and I was like, oh, what's this? I hadn't seen a Google ad on my phone, so then I just Googled Google mobile ad, and the first thing that came up was an article from eMarketer that was like, Google campaign management jobs are going to grow 300% by 2020. I was like, oh, wow, there's demand for people to do this. What is this? Second result, Google AdWords University, which is basically, I watched a 2-minute video on how Google advertising works. And it's actually really fascinating because it's really competitive. It's a real-time auction bidding system. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then next to it, it was like, do you want a job running Google campaigns? Get Google AdWords certified for free. And so you could take a test that Google administered for free, and if you got certification, you could put it on your resume. And so I looked at it briefly, and I was like, oh, wow, this will take me about an hour to do. And they had all the free tutorials and all the videos. So I spent the next 30 days watching every single video in the AdWords University and also watching additional videos on YouTube, completely over-prepared for the test. I mean, I probably could have taken it after the first week. I got certified. Then I just Googled Google Ad Campaign Manager job Chicago because I wanted to get back to Chicago.
Because the girlfriend was there.
Exactly. I applied to 3 jobs, but the first one that I applied to, I ended up getting about a week and a half later.
We'll get back to our interview with Grant in just a second. Hey, Mark, let's post up that article I wrote on the FIRE movement. Financial Independence, Retire Early. My Tribune article. That might be interesting for you guys to check out. And also, just check out the website, JillOnMoney.com. Check it out. Sign up for our free weekly newsletter. We'll be right back.
If you've missed any part of a show or want to check out a past show, go to JillOnMoney.com for more great personal finance content.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And we are talking to a young millennial, in fact, a guy who created a website called MillennialMoney.com. His name is Grant Sabatier, and he wrote a book called Financial Freedom. And in the book, he outlines one of the big motivations he had in turning his life around. Not that I think everyone should do this. It doesn't work for, sort of the run-of-the-mill person to say, I want to accumulate X amount of dollars in a certain time because, I like to do the real planning. But it gave Grant a kick in the pants. So check it out. $1 million was the goal. Was he able to do it? Here's more of our interview with Grant Sabatier. When you thought to yourself $1 million financial independence, did you really know what that meant? Or was it just like, I want $1 million? Because it's a good round number.
Yeah, it was that simple. I mean, it was just like, I want to save $1 million, and I'm going to figure this. I'm going to try to get there as quickly as possible. I also bought into the idea of how much is enough. And so going into my first job, immediately, even making $50,000, I was saving 60% of my income.
How is that possible? Because you're shacking up with a girlfriend at that time?
I shacked up with a girlfriend, and then I ended up upsetting a roommate, so I got kicked out of that apartment. So I had to get my own apartment. So I got an $800 a month apartment in Chicago that was really kind of crappy in a bad neighborhood. I needed a car, and so I got an $800 Nissan Maxima. And I was working all the time, so I literally spent no money. I was either like working or reading about money because I figured out that I could actually accelerate the rate of compounding. And that was a huge moment for me. So I didn't know like kind of where I was going. The $1 million is what I wanted to save. I knew I was saving a high percentage of my income. But then I did the math, and I was like, even saving 60% of my $50,000 income, it's going to take me maybe 22 years to get there. So I need to make more money.
And so how did you make more money?
Oh, yeah. So this is the fun part. So 3 months in, I'd learned enough about digital marketing. I'd learned how to build my first website. I was building WordPress websites, which now are really easy. You can do it with one click. It was easy back then, but you still had to do it. And so I went on Craigslist, and I literally just searched in the classified ad section, and there was a lawyer who was looking for a website. Lawyer needs a website, and he had a $500 budget. Reached out to him. I was like, I'll do it. And so I basically got paid to learn how to build a website. So I used a template that that I bought for $49. I customized it. I delivered the website to him. He was super happy. And I was like, hey, do you have anyone else that you know that needs websites? And he goes, I might. So through the next 3 months, he introduced me to some of his friends, and I got hooked into a local association of realtors in Chicago. And at the end of that next 3 months, so I'd been 6 months since I learned digital marketing, I sold my first $50,000 website.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I'd made more money in this one. And it's so funny because I sold the project, and basically I told him it would take at least, a month and a half to deliver, maybe a month and a half. And I finished it in 4 days. And so I actually had to wait 2.5 weeks. And I
you
used
didn't want to make it sound so easy.
Totally. But that was like, a lot of people were like, how'd you go from $500 to $50,000? I was like, I had nothing to lose. And then I started to unpack really what motivates people to buy and the perception of value. And I really try to figure out how people think. And I realized that the woman who was buying the website for me, the head of marketing for this law firm, she wanted a nice website, but that was table stakes. What she really wanted was to look good to her partners.
Right.
And so I focused on selling her on the idea that, hey, once a week I'm going to send you an email that you can send to your boss.
Right.
And I'm going to help you.
Right here, and I'm going to give you the metrics to deliver to them.
Absolutely.
Right? Oh,
and then
fabulous.
I ended up building my whole career on that, where I focused on, it doesn't matter how hard you work in life and everything that happens behind the door. What matters is the perception of the value of what you're selling to the person you're selling it to. And so I really fell in love with that and sales strategy and storytelling. And by the end of that first year, I was making $50,000 as my salary, but I'd made over $300,000 running Google AdWords campaigns for realtors, for a dentist office. I had my hands in a lot of different things.
And at this time, your girlfriend's in grad school, right?
She's in grad school, yeah.
And so she's working hard.
She's working so hard.
Like, you go work, fine. I got things to do, right?
Right.
Okay, so it wasn't like because some people would be like, maybe have stress in your relationship if you're so plunged in. But if you're both killing yourselves and working really hard, it's kind of like great timing. Let's do it now while we're young and we've got energy, right?
Yeah, it's perfect. And so she works in academia, and she was actually doing a lot of her research overseas for 2 of the 5 years that I became financially independent. And that was actually really helpful because it's like you're checking in with your partner once a week or a couple times a week on Skype, and then you can just focus on. That's why this is so much easier to become financially independent for someone in their 20s. Doesn't mean that you can't do it or shouldn't, pursue it in your 30s and 40s. But I went all in, and I made trade-offs that I wouldn't make again. And I also, in writing the book, realized that I didn't even need millions of dollars or to be financially independent. I already had so many of the benefits of what I was looking for early on. I just was so driven to get there. And one of the things is you don't need millions of dollars to feel free. And
that's a great point. I just interviewed this woman who wrote a really interesting book about the state of employment right now, right? It's called The Job. And one of the things that she talked about was that millennials especially have so much anxiety around their work life.
Sure.
And obviously if you're feeling anxiety, you don't perform at your peak, right?
Right.
But she also said that one of the things that people crave is consistency. And another thing they crave is to have some semblance of control. It sounds to me like you are more interested in the control factor, that you'll kill yourself working. You don't need it to be someone sending you a $500,000 paycheck every year,
right? But
that you could be in control seems to be a big motivator for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We all have the illusion of control. The paradox is the most beautiful things in life tend to be those things that are actually unexpected. And so even though we try to organize all areas and control everything in our life, it's often those unexpected things. And so it took me becoming financially independent to learn some of these deeper, I'd say, life lessons that I was just so hyper-focused. I actually talk a lot about burnout in the book. I feel like, especially for millennials, I just turned 34. I'm on the older end of millennials.
You seem old, you're right.
I feel like the experience that I have a couple years later, then it catches up with the rest of the generation. And so it's pretty interesting. Like, I am the digital native. I got a used laptop when I was 7 years old. I'm most comfortable in my life at my computer keyboard, literally. And that's one of the things that I think now we're reaching a point where money as a pathway to freedom, you don't need millions of dollars. Just having 6 months of expenses or a year of expenses gives you so many more options. And I knew that, but I was just really on this path to escape, when now looking back, it's like I would have done a much more balanced job, I think, of along the way. I honestly, I lost my, half of my 20s on this. And I feel grateful that now I have the ability to, do what I want with my life. And I think the sacrifice was more of an opportunity. It was worth it. But, I didn't go to the concerts with my friends that now I kind of wish I would have. One of the things you don't realize when you're in your 20s is that I had so much energy then and I took advantage of it, but you don't realize how much you're going to grow and change, as a person. And so I was like, I'll always have that opportunity. And now the friends that I could have gone to, Coachella with, or, Bonnaroo, all these festivals, and traveled to Europe with. One of my good friends in the middle of this wanted me to go on this trip for 2 months to Europe. I didn't go with him. And now you realize, okay, now all my friends have families and now they're not in that same headspace. You kind of think you're always going to have these opportunities. And so that's one of the reasons why I think a more balanced approach. I'm by far kind of on the extreme end, but I feel like an explorer. Like I've gone to the edge of money, literally the edge of money. I've unpacked this human invention. I've looked at it from every angle. I've read all the books. I've talked to thousands of people, written, over 700,000 words about it now. And now I've been to the edge and I've come kind of back from the edge, and this is my report.
And so from your report in Financial Freedom, a proven path to all the money you will ever need, who are you writing this for?
I'm writing it for everyone. I started writing it for my 24-year-old self. And then since I started Millennial Money in 2015, I've had over 17,000 reader emails of people. I got one this morning that just literally brought me to tears. And these are people, there's so many people out there struggling with money in their life. And money is something that there's so much fear, so much emotion. People think it's so complicated. And it's why I dedicated the book to anyone who's stressed about money and wants more from life. Like, I hear you. Like, I'm writing it for people who feel stuck in their life and are looking for that breath of air. Because I truly believe that money, anything in life, money is the pathway to freedom. Money gives you time and space. But money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
Okay, we'll get back to our interview in just a second. Hey, during the break, go to the website, JillOnMoney.com, and why don't you go buy the book? My book, that is. The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. A very lovely companion to Grant's book. Okay, we'll be right back.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, she's all over the place. Go to JillOnMoney.com to find it all. Now back to the show with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And we're going to conclude our interview with Grant Sabatier in just a minute. I just want to remind you that all the ideas around the FIRE movement, the financial independence, retire early, all of those ideas are grounded in really good stuff. So don't get thrown off by the fact that it's a millennial telling you what to do with your money. It can actually be seen as just a refreshing update to a previous goal that you may have had, just like your path to controlling your money. So here is more of our interview with author and millennial Grant Sabatier. I think what you're doing is amazing. It really is. And I think that you want to basically empower somebody, but you don't say that being rich is empowerment. You say, like, your knowledge, your ability to make a difference. It doesn't mean, sometimes when I come off the air, someone will say to me, but, like, I just can't put away $50 a week. Like,
right.
I really can't afford it.
Right.
And I'm like, well, what do you think you can afford? But just tell me what you think. Well,
Right.
I could do 10. All right, great, do 10.
Right.
Like, do something so you feel like you're controlling some piece of your financial life. So what is the pushback that you get? I mean, the message is so perfect. I don't get who would push back against it?
I think people who are afraid of truly going inside and questioning their life. I think it's so easy in life to chase that next thing. It makes us feel good. It's always easier to kind of like close our eyes and try to get the next job promotion or the next dollar amount. The tougher work is to stop and actually unpack what does make you happy. What do you actually want in life? Because the most important question isn't how much money do you need. The most important question is what kind of life do you want to live?
Right.
And then how much money do you need to live that life? And a lot of people don't know what makes them happy. And they don't know their why or their purpose. And we live in a culture now that's like, be happy, be happy, be happy, be happy. But happiness shouldn't be the goal. To be fully alive should be the goal.
Right. right. I mean, your life is not peaches and cream.
Right.
Life is hard.
Right.
And there are hard things. You went through a really hard time in your life.
Totally.
And your parents have had hard times in their life. But that is life. It's not like you cannot be, it's like choose to be happy. Like, I always thought that was such BS. Like, bad crap happens. Like, I'm not going to be happy about that.
Right. Right. The whole idea, I realized through this whole process that what I was chasing, it wasn't about the money at all. I was looking for peace. Mm-hmm. And it comes back to this idea. I felt like I needed a lot more money than in reality I probably did to feel at peace. And so a lot of people in their life that I talk to, so many people, they don't have enough money saved and they feel stuck. Mm-hmm. They have debt, responsibilities, and they feel stuck in their life. And when you're stuck in life, it's incredibly hard to get perspective on your life. And so money, the whole idea of the 7 levels of financial freedom, forget the $1 million in financial independence. Just get to that next level. And the most important one is level 3, which is breathing room. And that's when you have 6 months of expenses. And it might take you a year or 2 years to get there. That is an extremely noble goal. Forget about the world telling you need $5 million to retire. Forget about all that stuff. And this is one of my biggest things. Drove me crazy, is that like the entire personal finance world tells you to budget and cut back on all those small little purchases, but it's those purchases that make up life and give you the most joy. You know, I love that Marie Kondo's like blowing up again, because it's like I feel like she and I need to get a room together and like chat about this. It's like one of my life goals right now. But it's true, because those small things like the cup of coffee or the glass of wine or the concert tickets, those are the things that make us happiest.
I agree with you.
The world telling us to cut those back.
I totally agree. I was talking about like marketing my own book, and I looked sort of an offhanded way. I said to my editor, I'm like, if you feel like you're counting lattes, you've lost. You've lost. Like that is the most the part of me that's like, I'm not here to tell you not to have fun.
Right.
I agree with you. Like, figure out what makes you happy. If that latte makes you happy, then maybe something else has to give. But like, go have a latte with your friends.
Right.
Have fun.
Right. And have fun, enjoy your life. But the thing is, a lot of the money world that I found, and I'm part of the money world now, but I'm operating in my own terms, is, 90+% of it, I think, is scammy, greedy. Money follows money, and so that's the rapid filled stream that I'm walking up. I was invited to a wealth summit, and I just saw recently 3,000 people. I was supposed to speak at it, and then I declined right before I went on, because I saw they were selling these scammy products to people, tax lien software, stuff that like people just starting investing should never buy. And I think that like most of the money world and what people see is that. And so trying to speak kind of truth within that is where you get the blowback. Mm-hmm. Even running Facebook ads, for example, for my book, continued to get banned, the Facebook ads. And I actually had to have a call with Facebook, because like 99% of the people that advertise a money book on Facebook, they're scammy. They're using it for top of the funnel to sell. And I don't sell a 10,000K package. I don't do money coaching. I'm not an advisor. I have nothing at stake here beyond
you have a book.
Share. Exactly. Like a $14 book. I have nothing that I make $2 from. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not making any money off of this. I'm just trying to get this to as broad a base of people as possible. But fighting that resistance, fighting money is very powerful, because it's profitable to keep people in the dark. It's a tough world, and I'm just trying to shine a light and really empower people, because money's a human invention. It didn't exist, 5,000 years. It's just a human invention, and our culture embeds it with so much power and meaning and stress and fear. But you can choose what money means to you. You have that power. You don't have to buy into the fear of how you grew up around it, or money's bad or money's good. Like, money can be literally whatever you want it to be. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a means to an exchange to get you somewhere, but the emotions you put into it, and that's one of the things I recommend, spending 5 minutes a day with your money. I did it this morning when I had my first cup of coffee. I call it now my money meditation, where it's like just spending 5 minutes a day with your money, it starts to become more familiar to you.
And what does that mean for you when you say spend 5 minutes with my money?
Yeah, so I just open up my Mint personal tracking app and just look at my net worth and what I spent yesterday and what charges have come in and all my investments, and it's just like spending time with a close friend. It's like spending
and demystifying a topic that for many people is super scary and breeds anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something, when you spend 5 minutes a day with it, money starts to be something that's not this abstract, stressful thing. It's something familiar. You know it. And then I spend the rest of my day spending less because I'm interested in my net worth growing. And And it's something that is kind of weird for the first 30 days, but after 30 days, you actually get excited to look at your money because you start seeing it go up. You feel more intimate. You feel more close. It feels like a familiar friend. And the closer we get with money, the better relationship we end up having with it, then the less emotional we are about investing.
Thanks so much to Grant Sabatier for joining us. And if you've got more questions about the FIRE movement, hop onto our website, JillOnMoney.com. Mark's going to post these notes, and there will be a great link to an article I wrote. So check it out. Financial independence, retire early. It's Jill on Money. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You are back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Our website is coincidentally called, what is that, Mark? JillOnMoney.com. And there you will find all the great content that we create. And that can be anything from a television segment, an old radio show, a podcast. Perhaps you would like to sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Maybe you'd like to purchase the book. All the resources that we mention. Do you have some resources you want us to add to the list? Send them over. Mark will check it out. So this spring I've been on kind of major league book tour. And I was at a fantastic event at WTIC in Hartford, Connecticut. Thank you all who showed up. Hundreds of you. It was tremendous. While I was there, I'm schmoozing with the crowd before the whole thing started. And the guy hands me a letter. And he says, my name is Dennis. I've been listening to you for a while. And I've written something up about the college loan crisis. Can you give me your opinion? So I read it, and it's kind of interesting. And I love it when you guys come up with solutions to what is obviously a chronic problem in the economy, in the markets, for consumers. So here's what Dennis has said. He wrote, this is not about loan forgiveness. College loans should and will be repaid. However, it is a plan to make the repayment more doable. And he thinks free college tuition won't work. Nothing's free. There's always a cost that's going to be borne by all taxpayers for this. You know, it is true. I just want to give you pop in here with a little editorial. The problem with free college tuition is that sometimes it has been seen as a benefit to just one sliver of the population. So it may not be the very best way to proceed. Okay. Dennis continues to write, a college education should be affordable, not free. Today's college graduates, though, are saddled with enormous debt, and just when they're starting out and need to be saving for other life events. So here are his suggestions. Let's see what you think, Mark. Mandatory comprehensive counseling at high school levels for students and parents regarding borrowing for college. I like that one. Okay. Then he says loans for college should not be more expensive than home mortgages or car loans. Thumbs down from Mark. Right. Well, I mean, look, the problem is we're not underwriting on these loans. They have to be more expensive, theoretically, because there is no underwriting, meaning that no lender is coming in and saying, hey, Jill and Mark, you have a new baby, and I'm just joking. This is the hypothetical because I'm not having a baby with Mark, but Mark is having a baby. So, in other words, no one is coming and saying, how much do you make? Or if you're a student, how much are you going to make? What is your field of study? So without underwriting, it has to be more expensive. So I don't think that one's going to work, Dennis. College loans are not secured. They're also not forgivable in bankruptcy. Okay, this is interesting. This is a good one. While working, college graduates should be able to have deductions from paychecks paid directly, automatically to lenders on a pre-tax basis. You like that? Kind of like a 401k? That's an interesting one. I like that. And then he thinks, wouldn't it be cool if employers could contribute a match that would be similar to a 401k match. I think that's kind of good. I like that. I think other ideas that I would consider, in addition to Dennis's, because I think Dennis has some really good ideas here, I think that we should cap total student loans at a certain level, including private loans. So I think if it's generally speaking, parent loans and student loans, they used to be capped way back when. No longer are they capped. And I think they probably should be subject to underwriting. I hate to tell you that. So I think that refinancing college loans would be great, but even that, I think that there should be a uniform way that we present college financial aid, grant, loan information. I think the college should have to be on the hook for explaining what all the differences are. I think that we have to give people a projected payment upon graduation with the loan. I think that we should be very careful about making sure that kids understand when they do work study that money is going to just come to them in a bank, hit their bank account, and then they have to use it to then do something with it. They have to. So instead, I might say, wouldn't it be better for a work study if the money that they earned went directly to the institution to defray some of the costs? Anyway, there's a lot going on here. I know it's, look, we are now graduation season for high school as well. If you're talking to your kids about college funding and they're seniors in high school or they're about to become juniors, you're too late. And don't not have the conversation. But you got to have these conversations earlier. You must. When you're a freshman in high school, that's when you start talking to the kids. If you want some more help about college and some resources, you have the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They've got the Money As You Grow website. And the architect of that website was Beth Kobliner. She's a friend of the show. Beth Kobliner with a K, Kobliner.com. We need to talk college. And then you've got to check out money-mentor.com. Money-mentor.com. That's a free resource which will allow your kids to be much more involved in the process. Okay, it's not just all college funding, but that was this segment. It's Jill on Money. When we return, more of your questions. Hey, by the way, don't forget, go check out your 529 plans if you're saving for college. Okay, we'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. And before we finish out the show, I have a great follow-up question from Jess, who had asked us about surrendering a life insurance contract. And I asked her to give me some information, and she did some homework, and including figuring out the surrender charge on her current policy, which is about $1,200, so not too bad. And it only on the anniversary of the policy. It goes down a tiny bit, not by a lot. So anyway, it looks to me like the $1,215, that's the surrender charge she'd have to pay to get out. And I asked her about whether there would be a tax due. And remember, you may not remember, but in this call, Jess had said there were two policies. One was very old. And that because that policy was old, it had built up a bunch of cash. And also, that cash is now greater than the amount of money that was put into this policy and the other one that has been combined. So, long story short, Jess's taxable event by cashing out the policy, $18,800. That's a big number. She wants to know, is it capital gains or income tax? It's actually income tax. And she said, do you think I should surrender or not? And she writes, I feel like I should still surrender, even though I have to pay taxes on it. Do you agree? The answer is, I think yes. Jess had told us that she makes about $50,000 a year, which would put her squarely in the 22% tax bracket. And by adding that $18,000, she remains in the 22% tax bracket. So I'd go ahead, pay the surrender, pay the tax due, and, essentially just make sure that the insurance company, if they offer to withhold taxes, do it. If not, make sure that you just know that there's going to be some money that you got to pay, a little extra money on this. Keep it in cash for next tax year. Okay? So keep about 20% of it in cash, of that cash out that you get. Okay, that's it. That is the show. We have been broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios here in New York. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, hop onto the website, JillOnMoney.com. Send us a note from there. And of course, subscribe to our podcast. You can get it on Apple, Stitcher, Radio.com, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcasts. See you next week.